We conclude tonight with Vitka Eisen, who is from the Walden House, and you've had almost a 20-year career caring for those who are been incarcerated or under substance abuse. It's an amazing story, Walden House, which is why I wanted to have someone from Walden House here. You're on the front lines, aren't you, with those who are down and out in San Francisco that we read about, we see, they're demonized, they're made heroes. Everyone has their own view.
Sure.
But you actually work with people,
Those are
and you've had tremendous success. Tell me about some of the things that really impressed you now, even after working with Walden House this long.
Every day we have the opportunity to see people change their lives, and we see tremendous miracles at Walden House. Fundamentally, we believe that all people have the ability to change, and that and we've seen it happen again and again. I worked with a client who had been incarcerated for most of his adult life, for 30 years. He probably hadn't been out of prison but for more than 6 months, and that's a lot of crime behind him.
Yes.
And he never held a legitimate job. And so he comes through our program in the prison, he transitions into the community, he gets a job. I mean, it's an amazing transformation in his life. He holds a legitimate job. He has a job driving senior citizens around. And so he felt like he was contributing, like he was taking care of older people. And that's an amazing change. That's the kind of guy that people would have really given up on. Many folks who don't know these stories.
There are other stories. There's a page that you have at your website where some of your success stories, the alumni have written their stories. And I mean, you're right. This is not just someone who might have gotten into trouble or might have gotten hooked on drugs, by accident. We're talking about really hardcore situations here. Why? How does it happen? Why does Walden House have this impact?
There's a number of reasons. We have a very comprehensive array of services that we offer, because most of our, we're not in the business of doing rehabilitation. For many of our clients, it's habilitation. Many of our clients haven't lived, independently off drugs, in responsible with paid taxes in their whole life. So it really is helping to build lives from the ground up.
Now, when you say rehab, what you mean is you're trying to take a person back to where they were solidly.
That's what rehab would be. I would say. I'd say what we often do is really help people build lives that they have not had opportunities. They haven't had the chance to be successful, being in their family, maintaining a home, maintaining a job, paying taxes, paying rent.
So they have no experience?
Many of our clients have no experience doing
with
that.
What we would call basically a kind of a normal American life.
Right. So that's not rehab. I mean, rehab is returning somebody to that. But so in order to help clients in those situations along, you really have to offer a very comprehensive set of services.
Like
we have employment services to help folks get the soft skills they need to get jobs, to complete resumes. How do you write a resume when you've never held a job? How about
going back upstream though? If they're coming out of incarceration, or they may still be on drugs. Take me at that point. Where do your services intervene and begin to make a difference?
We have detoxification services for clients who are just coming off drugs. We also work with the county detox programs, taking clients from county detox directly into services. We offer individual and group counseling. We have a lot of our work is done in the milieu, in community. So we help to build positive peer cultures. Our programs are primarily residential programs. Then we build a positive peer culture of folks who are joined together, helping each other to gain social skills, create positive, pro-social, healthy relationships. So there's a counseling component, there's a psychoeducational component where people learn anything from basic life skills to anger management.
But the success, these are programs that do make up an array of what service providers do. But Walden House has had tremendous success. What do you think? That can be attributed to?
In addition to having all of those services, I think a lot of it has to do with creating a positive peer culture and a social culture. So, as I said, a lot of folks are really starting from scratch, and they may not have a positive social support network. And we all we all need that. We all need some kind of a positive social support network. We need to have friends. We need to have positive family relationships. For our clients who don't have that, our community becomes that. And as the clients move through program together, they become a social support for each other beyond program. I mean, they complete program. They graduate Walden House, if you will. And there's still, A, they're always welcome back to the house, and B, they create a community of each other. I mean, I'm a Walden House graduate from 22 years ago.
I see.
And I have friends today that I made back in program 22 years ago.
Is part of the bonding the fact that each one of the individuals that comes to Walden House has made the decision in some fashion to change?
It's very interesting. I would say that is not an easy decision anybody comes by. And that decisions to change behavior, there's always a great deal of ambivalence. If you've ever tried to quit anything,
yes.
if you've ever experienced that, people have a lot of ambivalence.
You'd have to start by saying, I want to quit, even if you fail, or even if it is an empty commitment. You'd have to make that decision versus someone who says, oh, I just don't feel like smoking anymore. You know, it's not something that you fall into.
That's true. However, at the same time, people may come into programs saying, I don't want to go to prison. That's my motivation. I don't want to go to prison. It's not that I want to stop using drugs. I don't want to...
Does that mean they don't want to commit crime, or they don't want to go to prison?
They don't want to go to prison.
Well, they might continue doing crime then?
Right. So, I mean, the initial motivation, we're talking about your initial motivation, may not be...
I want to go straight.
I want to go straight. It may well be, I want to avoid, I don't want to go to prison. And that's okay. That's okay, because whatever brings somebody in the door, it is our job to help to move them along in that process towards change. And that there's some folks who've done some research on behavioral change, and that people typically go through a series of stages to change.
Yes.
Nobody just goes from, I'm a heavy smoker today and tomorrow I just quit. Usually there's a whole thinking process that goes on in order to change. Well, that's true for addicts as well. And so our hope is to move them along in that continuum from what we call a pre-contemplation, that's the place where they're not even thinking they have a problem, to the part where they're actively maintaining a lifestyle of change.
So there's the first key. That is something that you do at Walden House, which is not just take where they are and not try to push. You probably don't push the whole thing on someone. They have to make those individual decisions.
Right. We have to give them a little bit of hope that that taking this next step that leads to a better life.
Let me ask you this now, though. The fact is that you're on the front lines of dealing with the homeless and street people.
About 80% of our clients are homeless when they come to us.
But you'd have to admit the ones who come to you have made some decision to come to you, because they could make the decision not to. As someone who's had 20 years experience, what do you do with the people who are not interested in changing, who are living on the streets chronically, substance abusers, whatever? What do you think we should be doing for the sake of the people who are living on the streets in that condition when they do not want to change their lifestyle?
I'm not always convinced that people don't want to change their lifestyle. I think that people have fears about what comes next, and so people are much more comfortable where they are than often, because it's familiar, than what comes next. But I think that the key is, and I think that this is the direction that San Francisco has moved into, is to first find safe housing for people, and then bring the services to the client, and then wrap the services around the client.
But is it your supposition that every single person who, no, I don't want to make it dramatic, most of the people who are living on the streets, if they had the opportunity, well, of course you're going to give free housing and free food and free service and so on. I can't believe anybody would not take it except some real hardcore street people. Wouldn't you agree?
Right. There's some folks for whom there are other issues that go on.
But you think the majority of people who are homeless and living on the streets, if they had if they were offered the opportunity, they would take it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. I believe that. I had a client. I was working in Boston in a correctional facility doing substance abuse with women. And I had a client who spent about 6 months in jail with us. She did, maybe about 9 months. She did really well. She was a beautiful young woman. She's very creative. She's very talented. And she left us. She went to a program. And at some point along the way, as happens with addiction, she relapsed, ended up back in the streets. And I happened to run into her probably about a year later. And she's completely torn up. She's she was an amphetamine user, and she'd pick at her hair when she was high, and she'd pick things on her skin, and she was filthy. And no one would choose that life if they really believed they had, I mean, I think that really brought that home to me, that no one would choose that life if they really believed, if there were services to help them live in other ways, and if they really, they felt safe doing that, and they had the support to change their life. That's not something someone would just freely choose to be.
But a lot of the people who are in that condition have lost the ability to make free decisions. In other words, the free will we talk about is almost a luxury of having a good place to live and lead a normal life.
Particularly when you're talking about addiction, which is a driving need.
Yeah. Well, see, it's my view that I believe that the city should build every single one of those housing, and then for anyone who's left on the streets be forced into housing that doesn't make that decision. In other words, if you say to the voters, give me $200 million, we will build all the facilities, and there'll be no reason for anyone having to live on the street, then you can begin to talk about bringing some of the people in who are incapable or don't want to go into any kind of life change.
What's the alternative for them, however, when they don't?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That I think that would be the contract with the voters, is that you provide the money and then we provide the enforcement. But that's another issue altogether. What you're saying is the majority of the people would make that decision if the facilities were available.
If the services were well matched to their needs, yes, I believe so.
Well, I mean, basic housing, basic
housing,
services,
medical services, mental health services.
Do you see those resources out there now? Do you see the commitment by the mayor and the board to make those facilities available?
I think that there is certainly a desire to do that. Currently,
$6 billion budget.
Right. Concurrently, in substance abuse in the city, we're facing some significant cuts right now. And I'm not sure you're aware of that in the mayor's budget.
That's what I mean. Your answer.
So that even though we treat this population, that's 80% of our clients are homeless. We're currently facing potentially a cut of a number of residential and outpatient slots.
Do you see that kind of commitment coming from the board and the mayor to say, okay, you give us the resources, and we will take care of the situation? You don't see that. You see a cutback in resources.
I see a cutback in resources. I think that San Francisco has taken steps beyond what many cities have, compared to many other cities in the country. But certainly, as I said, we're currently facing some cuts. And again, you're talking about this is the population that we serve. So,
what do you think the impact will be if that budget is passed? I mean, what does it do to your organization?
It looks like it's a minimum of 60 residential beds going away, and that's a lot. Those are a lot of beds, and a minimum of 90 outpatient slots. Now, that's not necessarily just to our organization. There's a number of provider organizations that provide substance abuse services. No, that's not good news at all. And we're hoping we will have the opportunity to speak to the Board of Supervisors about that this month.
Well, if the voters and the mayor and the board complain, then they only have to look at themselves.
The Health Commission didn't approve the budget. They didn't put their stamp of approval on it because they weren't pleased with the notion that we were potentially losing slots.
Yeah.
Treatment slots.
Vitka Eisen, thank you for being here. Good luck to Walden House.
Thank you
for what you're doing.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.